Okay, hey guys. Doing my first vlog from my new apartment on campus at back at school now, so you can probably expect to see this background quite a bit now. Highly unconventional way I have my Majora's Mask poster set up. Admittedly, it's because it's like vinyl, it weighs too much for like sticky tack to hold up, so it's currently suspended from my blinds, which I say why not? It keeps it up. I think it looks great. I wanted to bring it with me. I wanted to hang it over my TV though. I always like to have that poster over my TV. If not my Master Sword, because at home I have a Master Sword on a shelf that I keep over my TV in my bedroom where my Nintendo 64 is hooked up and I play Majora's Mask. You can also see my Scott Pilgrim poster back there. Not huge, but you know, it's one of those exclusive posters you got with the box set. And I found out online you can actually order just the box and just the poster, which is kind of incredible. It was $10 for the whole thing, plus like $7 for shipping. That last part's the worst of it, really. Yeah, I mean, I had no problem. I would have no problem paying $10 for that alone, and the box that comes with it is pretty awesome. I'll give you guys a whole look at this place in one of my future vlogs. I got my Mario chess set up right over here, just past where the camera can see. You can kind of see it there. Okay, so because I knew I wasn't going to be getting a chapter out this week, I decided, okay, well, I'll send out some commentary and then I'll maybe do a vlog because I've been thinking about doing vlogs, just critiquing things for a little while, and I said, well, now's as good a chance as ever if you're not going to put an episode out this week. So, you know, audiobook stuff will resume next week. I'll see, you know, just when I get it out, when stuff is going to be ready, all that stuff. I hope it's going to get cut together really well because next week's chapter is supposed to be, I expect it to be really, really awesome. Just what I have set up right now, I mean, like, the chapter in the comic alone features an amazing scene, and I really hope I do it justice. So, what am I going to talk about in the meantime? Well, I just finished a series on DVD called Broken Saints. This is a series from 2001. It ran from 2001 to 2003, exclusively on the internet. It labels itself the animated comic epic. So that's interesting. That kind of had me interested right there. Oh, I don't have the original box, so I can't really give a very good back of the box description, but I just found this at my local half price books. It was on sale for like $7. This thing is 4 DVDs long, like 10 hours in total of this very interesting concept. And okay, so just as a general thing, this is considered like one of the first motion comics ever made, and it kind of shows in some of the bad ways, but it kind of shows in some of the good ways too. And I've never actually been that big into motion comics, which is weird because like I know I'm pretty much doing a motion comic right now, or like I've set up that I might do this in motion comic format in the future, but like motion comics by themselves, just like something never quite seemed right. Like nothing's ever moving quite enough. The difference between like what I like about the kind of motion comic I've kind of set up when I released that little tech demo on YouTube, what I really like about that is it's just still comic panels, and it might be moving, but there's nothing in the background that's moving, because that's really distracting. And like when you just are zoomed in on a character's face, and maybe like if they're really scared, they're like, okay, I don't like it. That just looks silly to me. A lot of motion comics have that problem, in my opinion. I would rather have just static frames moving across the screen with no real other movement involved in them than just like a limited animation in the back. Now, if that said, Broken Saints is fantastic. I actually liked it a lot. And it has its fair share of problems. There are some things that I thought were wrong with it that maybe I would know how to fix, but maybe not. It's really kind of hard to judge, and maybe I could have made this better. Maybe someone else could have handled this better than the creative team did on it, but just like in general, that didn't keep me from really, really liking it. So, if you're a fan of like, comic books, of comic book plots, of urban fantasy, because this has a pretty strong urban fantasy essence, or you're like drawn to religious fiction, not necessarily like zeroing in on anyone in particular, just like fiction that involves religion one way or the other, which is really why I was drawn to it, because I like a lot of religious pieces, both ones that'll say things in any way, shape, or form. This is a very interesting conversation about that, and like, yeah, it's just a very good story, really. And like, kind of some of the okay, so I'll talk about the plot a little bit. The plot of Broken Saints is that in 4 separate parts of the world, 4 seemingly random people receive these visions of the apocalypse. Or like they just see, like they can foresee this mass destruction that's coming, and there's this little white-haired orphan child who its face is obstructed, so you can't really see any specifics, but like that's one of the major common themes with all of these dreams and nightmares they're having. And the 4 characters are a white girl named Shandala, who was shipwrecked in Fiji, around Fiji, ended up on this island and was raised by the island's natives. A Canadian tech programmer named Raimi, who lives in totally not New York. I'm going to call all fictional cities that are not New York totally not New York. I think it's called Coast City, I want to say, but it's totally not New York. So, computer programmer, Canadian. How does that keep happening? This was made by Canadian people. How do I keep ending up with Canadian comic-like series? I don't know. You must be doing something good up there, you guys. Okay, so there's those 2. There is he's an Islamic extremist named Oran, who is based out of Baghdad. And it's funny because like I really started the series not liking him at all. I just thought he was a really kind of a boring one-note, I hate the West kind of character. But he kind of grew on me. He really grew on me, and he really grows as a valuable character by the time this is over. And then there is a Japanese Shintoist monk named Kamimura. And like, oh my lord, I want to know why no one seemed to have come up with the joke. A Shinto priest and an Islamic extremist walk into a bar, because holy crap. When 2 of your characters are an Islamic extremist and a Shintoist priest, it's comedic gold. Those 2 characters play off each other really well. It's really funny to just watch them respond to each other, because like, obviously one of them is an Islamic extremist, just like, I am the right. You are not allowed to debate me. I will have no question on this matter. And no one else dare would. I mean, like, again, he's probably has some ties to some Islamic terrorist groups, but then you got a Shintoist priest, and he's like, why can't we all be right? I am praying to the gods. There is only one God with many faces. Oh my lord, just the way they play off each other. It's good stuff. It's good stuff with those 2. Okay, so these 4 start having these apocalyptic visions, and no one's really sure what it's all amounting to. But like, and this is on the back of the box, it's essentially stated that there is this great overarching plan for world unity that's that's related to these apocalyptic visions. It involves this satellite network somehow, and nothing's really made clear until like the last 4 or 5 chapters. It takes a long time for the comic to really get anywhere, and that's like, in addition to like the fact that I don't really like limited animation. That's one of the few things I would really kind of argue about. Like, this thing takes forever to get going. This thing is 24 chapters long. I would say you have to get through like half of that to really start to get to the good stuff, to really like get to the meat of the story. And there's certainly something good about writers and actors and artists who take their time. I'm not saying there isn't, but it's just like, oh my lord, it felt like it was going on forever. But once it got to the awesome part, holy crap, did it get to the awesome part. So, yeah, just, if you want my spoiler-free thoughts on Broken Saints, I highly recommend it. It's a really good urban fantasy. It's a really good character study. It's a very interesting look into like faith and togetherness and unity and the price of those things. I mean, like, not to get into what the ending amounts to, but like, you know, it is one of those stories where you kind of are like, it does ask some interesting moral questions and some interesting questions of, okay, I feel like this is wrong, but is it justified? Is something like this not justified, you know, by what we've been following and all of that? I mean, I know I'm being very vague about it, but that's because like the comic story, whatever Broken Saints is itself, just does a really good job by the time it gets done. I mean, I've read online some people who complained like this thing really bangs you over the head with what it's trying to say. I didn't feel that at all. Admittedly, for like the first 18 chapters, I was sitting there like, what is this thing trying to say? Because like every chapter, it's labeled in 24 chapters on a clock, which is pretty cool. And so it's all marked by chapters, and every chapter starts and ends with a quote by like, they go everywhere. I mean, they quote the Bible, they quote Gandhi, they quote Alan Moore, they quote Mark Twain. It's all over the place. And those are a little annoying. I'm not a huge fan of quoting things all over the place. But, you know, it worked out okay. It was easy enough to ignore. And there were some times when, like, the intros to episodes, like, a bunch of different, every episode or chapter or whatever they are has a different introduction that's a reference to something, and those kind of get tiring. There's a Fight Club one, there's a Wizard of Oz one. I hate Wizard of Oz. That's gonna come back sooner or later. That's gonna come back. But it doesn't matter. Those were a little distracting. But just to talk about the story itself, the story is very long, very entwining. It has a lot to say. There's a ton of exposition, but like, I didn't mind. I didn't mind at all. The quality of the storytelling really kept me from getting too bothered by that. So, you know, if you're a fan of, you know, modern day fantasy and, you know, moral questions and all that kind of stuff, yeah, Broken Saints, I highly recommend it. I'm sorry I can't tell you more. I don't want to spoil this. I don't want to ruin this for anybody because, like, again, when I found this thing, I hadn't heard anything about it. I avoided all the spoilers, and oh man, I'm glad. I might have needed someone to explain a few things to me when it was over, but I'm still really happy I watched through this series, and I don't sit down and watch, you know, a whole series very often. I did this over the course of about a month or two, I would say. So it took a little while, but that's alright. You know, not a lot to say. It is an early motion comic. It does suffer from some problems I think motion comics suffer from, but like once you get past that and some of the little quirks in the animation and all that, it's a really good series. So, you know, It's honestly kind of a more. No, I can't. I probably can't make that Scott Pilgrim connection very well. But like, just in like how seriously it can take itself sometimes and how playful it can be with itself in other times, because there were some really good, really genuine laughs in here and some really satisfying, yeah, let them have it moments, which I don't get to have very often. I've had a few of those in the last year though, and oh, they're exciting. So yeah, Broken Saints. I'm pretty sure you can view the entire series online, given it started online. I just own a physical DVD. Highly recommend it. Check it out. Thanks for listening.